This is where I'm here.
Right.
This is where I really, right behind Michael is a piece that I had just done finished on the floor. There was a piece that I had done for Art Walk in Callicoon. And it would spin in my head. Every time I hear George Harrison, give me hope, help me cope, my idea is to fiddle futz with it and change it some. While I'm not a songwriter, I'm a song masher-upper. And that's part of what I do. Piece that I'm working on here that I have taken time, which will probably require 2 panels, is a 1957 song that I was a jukebox nut. So I stood next to them and sang with the jukebox all the time, thinking that I was whoever the performing artist was. George Hamilton IV from Kentucky and North Carolina, who wound up becoming a more religious singer. But A Rose and a Baby Ruth was his single well-known song. And since '57, it has been, just a short time ago, it has been in my head and I needed to strike it. And there are 2 preteens who are considering what's going on with them.
So the Baby Ruth and We Had a Quarrel.
Yeah, We Had a Quarrel. There they are. She is smiling because she is now in receipt of his present, a Baby Ruth and a rose.
So I can see that music sort of is an inspiration for you. We walked in, there was music playing, you get inspiration from music.
Always. And all of a sudden, in the middle of doing something else, I need to either write it down or I may even change the layout and say, you know what, lay on press right now. I'm doing some sort of an excerpt from Ricky, Don't Lose That Number by Steely Dan. Call me when you get home. You'll feel better. And at the end of it, I'll write, so will I. That's all I need. It's hard to ignore it. Again, popular culture. Most of it came about up here in the Catskills. During my summers, I would walk down the road. We had a log cabin up here. And I know you know some of this background, certainly.
No, but please tell me again.
Yeah, I would walk down the road at age 13 and so, listen to the songs on the jukebox at Fink's Bungalow Colony Canteen, or Joe Jean's on the corner of West Shore and Horseshoe. And I would come home, I would be singing with them, and I would drive my family nuts, not stopping. All I have to do is Dream by the Everly Brothers. My family would go, Billy, I know you liked it, it's a good song, but stop, enough already. It's sort of how that, and I would try to do it at the top of my lungs, thinking that I was one of the Everly Brothers, of course. That was it in the 50s as a kid. As soon as there were radios and as soon as we would emerge as young teenagers taking on our music, whether it was Elvis, 56, and before then even some earlier doo-wop stuff. And my family was always listening to music. We had usually jazz, swing, and very wonderful vocals from Ella and Sarah Vaughan. And my favorite, my first, and I think I mentioned this in Westboro, at age 4, my first song was Nature Boy that I remembered, Nat King Cole. And it just hadn't stopped since 54. I think since I was 4 years, 1947. His song lasted from 43 on the air for 4 years. Wow. It was just dynamite. And if I'm talking about it with such ease, you can tell I have not let it out of my system. And acquiring the press has allowed me to make change in my work and add the language of things, pieces and parts of songs, and in some cases, things that are either bothering me or giving me optimism, even optimism politically. The notion of being a little bit philosophical and understanding coexistence here I have room, I have time, I have space to do that in the Catskills. That works its way in. So sometimes I will actually combine even popular music with something that may be a couple words and extend them so that they become some newer message that asks you to hum on the way in or dance on the way out, something like that.
Do you have a schedule? Like, I know you say you create do you create every day? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Unless there's something really wrong, unless there's something that will impede that.
Well, you have your artwork and your process all around you.
Yes.
Which is basically
That's
you wake
what I
up
did.
and it's like, it's there in your face.
It was done that way. As soon as I had the need to go and walk a piece into here to get painted, to get cut, to lay out, to make stacks, to match, to do some match. As soon as I was able to do that very early on, actually that was even before 2005. My first exhibit up here was at the Blue Victorian in Jeffersonville in 2005. So as soon as a year or two after I got up here, or as soon as I landed, we put the press out there in what was a dining room. Sorry. I started to go to work.
But before that, when you were growing up as a kid, did you do artwork? Or
Yes.
Okay.
It was so wonderfully, happily in my craw in a number of ways. And the first way, do we want to stay here, or is it okay to move as we
can
talk?
move as long
I'll show you happily. When I was a small kid, again at about 5, between ages of 5 and 8, my father, who was a very talented and good guy, went to Brooklyn College at night to take a painting class. And of course, it was still life painting, bowls of fruit and bottles on a tabletop, après saison. And so he had paints. He had a box of paints. My grandfather, who was a carpenter and cabinet maker, made his favorite son-in-law a wonderful box with beautiful hinges to store his paints and brushes. While my father was away at work in the city, at his haberdashery store, I would sneak into those boxes, do a little squeeze. And that's when it really started. The second portion of that too, and I know that I had mentioned this, one of the great influences on me, very more mature. Once a month, the Met sent out a folio of famous artists. We would receive that in the mail. My job sometimes, as I got a little older, closer to 8, was to open up the mailbox downstairs, and I would actually start that folio up even before my father saw what he had subscribed to. And I still have those folios from my father from the late 40s, early 50s, and those were very, very big influences on me as well. They were confluent. And what I think is a treat, my father, this was one of my father's earliest paintings. This was our log cabin on West Shore Road in Cunningham Lake. And my family bought that in 1938 from two brothers whose father owned a gas company in town. As soon as they finished it, my family came up from their summer place and said, we need a place of our own near a lake. They went from Harris to Cunningham Lake and bought this log cabin. And it was a big influence just by texture, by color, by property. And I was 4 or 5. And this is my father sitting in the chair in front of that log cabin.
Oh, wow. I
still keep him around. I'm still wonderfully influenced for all of those good things.
Is the house still around?
No. The property is, there were 5 buildings on the property. There are now 2. The log cabin burnt down, I think, in the early 90s. Thereabouts, sadly. And I do stop by every so often to throw it a kiss, to say hello. That was my roadway. My father also had a very precisionistic, small and tidy printing. The influence of print in his signature. And when he wasn't looking, I would take Higgins India ink and his pens, his brass-tipped Coit pens, Speedball and Coit, and I would start to do my cartooning. And every so often, we would hear from each other, "Bill, what happened to my ink, Billy?" And when I showed him my first couple of paintings, it was, "Do you have to use that much paint?" He would go into his box to look for his favorite yellow, and lo and behold, the tube was pretty flat. These are just kinds of fun, enjoyment, exchange, and relational things that I had very early.
Was he supportive as far as seeing that you were starting creative work? Did he support it as far as encourage you to do more work, or?
We had conversations about that, which started in my teens also. It was the same thing as being the rock and roll singer that I was and bringing home songs. At that time, based on some project work that I was doing in my elementary school, it was not a middle school, but I'm thinking from 3rd through 6th grade, I was doing artwork and showing it off in my reports. And at a certain point, there was a decision to be made in 6th grade. And when I was going on to another neighborhood's junior high school, I went to a special art class. I was in a special art program. And while I had my wonderful folios, and so I would be a wise guy and talk about this art. A teacher would talk about that artist, and I would talk about some of the same, or do a comparison or contrast and say, well, how about Dali or Modigliani? And we had fun. And by the way, I'm still in touch with very many of my friends from that era, and we talk about art and that wonderful time in Mrs. Raskin's special art class at Winthrop Junior High School. At that same time, my parents, that's very nice, Billy. That's nice. Yeah, I like that. I think you used too much paint here again. And finally, in heading toward high school, it was, really? Art? You want to live in a garret for the rest of your life? And that was part of the discussion. So what I did to satisfy the world, I switched the dial. I changed stations, said, how about pre-med? And so what I did in moving along was studying sciences, and science illustration became a part and parcel of work that I was doing to satisfy family, authority, good things in the world. And I did do that a lot and did it well. A lot of pen and ink in my classes in college. And I wound up teaching in the sciences for a number of years. And much of my boards, before whiteboards, blackboards, were filled with my cells, my ribosomes, my mitochondria, my fungi, for sure, ferns, whatever I could get there, asking the kids to do the same, and it gave me a chance to do what it is that I love to do, which is to stretch out, to draw and fill in. That's sort of the way that went.
Right. So, and how did you get into sort of where you are now with the printmaking and making the paintings, stuff like that? Did that happen during your career as a teacher, or was it after you retired? I got into printing immediately. That my father put little signs for his goods in his haberdashery on 6th Avenue of the Americas in the city. Again, I looked at it and I became a copyist. I wanted to letter hard and dark, and loved it to pieces. And I still have some of the pens that I kept some, and they're crazy looking, and now we have, of course, bypassed them with the variety of markers that we can use. And printing and language were always afloat
at home. Again, my use of his ink. And we always spoke about the newspapers in the evening and read newspapers, parts of them out loud. And our job, which contributes to some of the humor in my work, was to read things backwards.
Really?
To do transpositions, to do purposeful dyslexia, and do some reinterpretations. And that was part of the fun at the dinner table each and every evening. And my folks were readers and we had books, but again, playing around, including messing up with the titles of books and even some of the language went on at the same time. Later on in my life, however, in the late 70s, I left education and I I needed to reclaim myself after life changes. Went back into New York City, put on a suit and tie, and I became a headhunter. And my specialty, I was down in the Wall Street area, and I did that for about 15 or 17 years. And what was my specialty? Printing. The printing industry was they were mine, I was theirs, and that's what I did morning, noon, and night. And I learned more about printing, evidently. I felt the need to do that from the start. I had a wonderful tour of all of New York and the print shops in and around New York. And I did more than New York. I really handled it regionally. And then I did go to shops, listen into their complaints, their delights, and found out a fair amount. And then later on, an opportunity came up. Alexander's department store went bankrupt, and I think in '89. And in '90, the fellow who ran their department took home all of this stuff to Hyde Park, New York. Saw it advertised in a paper shop. Went with two other friends. We loaded at $500 that I borrowed from them and bought everything, including piles and piles of paper. I still have some of that paper. Oh. I've given some of that. Not a high quality paper. It was not like a watercolor or an engraving paper. It was much different. And I still have some of it and still use it. And it was a delight. So if we add those things together, that was, I think, crowning of my print experience and my interest in wanting to get back to working with letters and lettering.
Right. And
it's been hypnotic. It's been very consuming in a way that I had learned about in my days in the printing industry. That's precisely what these people told me. It'll make you crazy. And I did listen to that. And I heard it, I cannot tell you how many times, from people who actually mastered the equipment or the folks who ran the companies and had to put in all of the hours with all of the difficulties of it. And that industry fell on its behind in the early 90s, and I'm sure that you can relate to it. And part of that was because they refused to go digital.
Right.
And what happened? In-house publishing. As we know, you could just develop a desktop with your printer and your computer, and you were set to do what you needed to do in your marketing and your promotions. That ended my career in headhunting, which I delighted in. I had a very good time with it. I lived at the seaport and walked just a few blocks westward to my office. I enjoyed the city and getting around to printing houses, understanding financial printing most especially. Wonderful historical names in New York, Bound and Company, Pandic Press, and so on. And I watched it shut their lights at night, and I had to make a choice. My choice was very quickly after working a brief period of time, but a wonderful period of time. I sold paints and brushes on the floor at Pearl Paint Company on Canal Street. I became their head buyer. I was there for 15 months. I left there, went to Westchester to my brother's basement and painted away. I was in Chappaqua just painting for 15 or 18 months, making artwork. That was what I did. And again, that was where and when the press came available. And I was painting, teaching painting, exhibiting. I began my membership in art associations, which was a delight. Katona Museum of Art, down to Purchase, New York, and to look at great shows and showing off my work from 93 to 98, all around Westchester and Rockland counties. That was my turn. And then finally, I had to look at my watch and say, hey, I think you need to earn a living. I think what you need to do is not rely on trying to sell a painting or two off of a wire rack. But I think what you need to do, and I went back into teaching. I returned to science teaching in 98 and stayed with science teaching to support my bad painting and printing habit through 2012. And in that period of time, I came up here to return to the Catskills, which of course was a wonderful influence. It contributed to my science thinking, my science education, my eyeballs being wide open to describe as I did when we just were outside, and my good flavor. Where did I learn about the brilliance of a salamander's orange? Right here in the Catskills. Where did I find crayfish with claws and freshwater mussels? In the Catskills. And it was wonderful to come back here to enjoy again this coalescence of some of these things that I have been putting together and make sure that I was really hitting up my art. And I left education for that reason, full time. I stopped. I made a decision, and it was a difficult one. Teaching, heading the science department at a private school was doing well for me. And I decided to make a choice. And that's what I have been doing since full time here. And it's been the most difficult thing imaginable, the hardest job I have ever had, and very definitely the best.
One thing I noticed now as you talk and now I see you work, and you mentioned the origins of like your father being a painter and even the lettering as a kid. It seems like now everything is, to me, it seems like it's sort of trying to recapture that feeling as a kid and opening up stuff and exploring and putting letters together on and stuff like that. So
yes, I'm not finished.
Yeah,
I'm still doing that. I'm still playing around or potchkeying around. Absolutely. I enjoy it that much, and I like the transmission of it. I do like passing it on and along with people that I bump into. And adults, not any more especially than children. And it's just nice to do that. I've done some work with kids up here also, including having fun of going down to the DYC in Callicoon and having someone help me carry my press, bring down a couple of drawers, and do that thing, which is to make them have little name plaques for themselves. Bring some colored parcels of paper and having them watch me do the printing for them, making sure that we're shaking it out, everyone's shaking it out, trying to dry it with their name on their little piece. But doing that same thing, I think there's something, and I'm sure you understand that experience with Lucy.
Yeah.
Opening up a jar of something, looking at it with its liquid, its wetness at the top and its pigment down at the bottom, or its smell, or whatever it is, or the little droplets that it makes upon opening it. All of those explorations to me are not much different than the extension of nature as we're looking at leaves color, as we're looking at leaves fall away, as we're seeing really even the light on the river as it's moving. Part of the same explorations, and I am out there as much as I can, I'm in here having my eye open and making it work, but I'm also out there on the street or on the roadway doing some of the same and trying to bring it home and make it work with my other my silly sensibilities, the song, the politics, even the philosophy, about coexistence. Right. I think it has kept me spry, or keeping my teenage head. I do think so. I'm very fortunate.
Your mind is always working. It seems like you're out there, you're observing, you're just taking everything in and sort of regurgitating, for lack of a better word, regurgitating it out to your artwork.
I'm encouraged to believe that most of the folks that I encounter doing the same thing. Most of the people that I spend my time with and spend their time with me are doing much the same thing. I really think that's a lot of why people are up here. Again, the room, the space, the coloring, all of these things, the 1,100 feet of elevation that we're at here in our lower Catskills, but being able to access what? Eagles.
Right.
Look at an eel weir in a river. Look at the deer who come close to you. Any of those things, as knowing as they are bringing you to your automobile place for repair. But the truth is, those same youthful things, the things we explored, whether it's animal or plant life, and or even a new experience. And to go further, you and I in this day and age, all of us, have discovered people having those same exploratory experiences electronically, technologically, differently, but it's nice to see those explorations also. It really is nice to even hear about them and look at even hear about the process and look at some of the product. I'm impressed. Yeah. And we see that in we know about this digital photography. When did that happen? How did that happen? It used to be so clicky and manual, but it's part of the same thing. And I'll come back another time to say, this area is a wonderful, wonderful fostering, and the area being a big one. From east to west, very great fostering area for very many artful talents. Music, photography, other visual arts, and we can go on.
All right.
And I think it keeps people, despite the challenges of our times, including that COVID period of time, I honestly feel it has contributed to the maintenance of being lifted up and having very good feelings about being out, about getting along well, saying good morning, having the greeting returned to you. There was always something special about being here, and I see it holding on.
Because you mentioned I have similar experience, like living in the city and then coming up here. I always felt more connected to nature, because the sky is so more visual. You see the sky, so you see the weather. Is not only to just listen to the report. You look up and you see there's a dark cloud coming down a couple hundred miles away. Right. It's coming towards you. You notice that the wind is blowing. Precisely. Like the deers are near you, and just feel like you're part of the whole ecosystem up there.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think what we wind up doing is contributing to that also. We deal with our consciousness about it, whether it's giving dollars or giving hours or giving words to it, whether it's on the air or in some hard copy or photographically, whatever it is. I think we are trying to talk about its maintenance, making sure that it's sustained, allowing ourselves to be happily affected by it, comfortably and joyfully. And that joyful portion is what has us not get much beyond that 18 or 24-year-old character that we would like to believe we still are. Yeah. As much as we can hold on to it. Things do change, we know that. But yes, there is something terrific about it. And again, a large community from east to west up here. From Wurtsboro on the way up this way, if we think about, and if we go back in time, if we look at it historically, it's been that way.
Yeah.
It has been that way. Whoever it was that made up their minds to start to harbor artists who made their way from New York in the middle of World War II, after World War II, and get them up here into the country for a bit of a residency at a camp. Well, those are some of the things that I think really made big footprints out this way. And I think it influenced, I can't help but feel very good about that.
Right, definitely.
Really quite terrific. And you know too, there are wonderful organizations up here that have really done what? They have contributed to it. They've created housings for people to have conversations of this sort, and to go and exhibit work. I really think there's something great about it. I think it's unique.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's a lot of places, and we hear a bunch of it. And again, whether it's from Woodstock to Woodstock,
Right.
from our Woodstock right over here to Woodstock that way too, and up here, and certainly up into the upper reaches of the Hudson. We know that this is an area that really has it terrifically.
Yeah,
I'm grateful. I'm impressed with it yet all the time. It's nice to see other people's work all the time, from little kids to mid-range folks, people who are making new trials. It's quite terrific.
Yeah.
And it inspires. Got to watch that word a little bit. I don't wish to give too much effete or elitism, but it's inspiring. It's a lot like ball playing. So when I come out here, this is a part. These are the statements. These are from the statements from the department store from Alexander.
Oh, okay.
This was an old version of it, and I planted it on a piece of lucite here.
Yeah.
But this is where I come. So I lay out work. I'll put work out here either to dry, right off the press if I can, and then I go and spray it with plastic to fix it. And I'm better off again being out of doors, not hurting my lungs. And the other is painting. To come out here on whether I'm just painting flat, solid backgrounds or doing some detail painting. Come out with a ruler, some straight edges, or some half-curved, strange, funky things that you decided to shape up, and throw some color down in there. Have a day of color. If you're going to use the sunlight. The light of day is so terrific. It's so easy, and you can really accomplish something. So you can open up a roll of the material you're working with, measure off where 24 inches are so that you know what your press width is. These are 15 inches high, pre-measured. Go in there and make some designs. Throw some color down. Make splotches if you want. It doesn't matter, but come on out here with a couple of rolls of things and drape them over everywhere for them to dry in the afternoon air. That becomes a delightful painting experience for the day. Ultimately, I may come and throw some line work in it, snip them at 22 or 24 inches, and stack them up as you see inside. Right. And then I have right at my disposal, when I'm printing, have an expression in mind, a song in mind, a child's name in mind for a placket. It's nice to be able to just turn right there,
pull something out, and just
say, this is suitable, this works, right. This is comfortable. But I have found this spot to be really a very good, easy spot. You can tell, we have very little traffic over here. This is small population. The road noises are not that much of anything. This is a treat.
Good sun here.
It is. This is part of the good choice making, I think, and how to split up a day when you have weather of some sort. Not to overdo it in the high 80s, low 90s. You need to think about that too.
Right.
But
You don't
and
want to pass out.
I'm shocked that we're able to talk about this outside November 3rd.
Yeah.
Wow, it's quite special. It is.
Yeah, last week was especially, it was like almost 70 degrees. Almost 80
This
at
is
one
feeling.
point. Yeah.
This is very comfortable. There's no issue in this at all. It's dynamite. But this has been good. I really am. And again, from time to time, what I do is I bring a stack of wood from cutting there. I'll bring it here and actually do my sanding, gluing, and clamping here to make my panels.
Right, because you also do your own framing and.
I made that choice a time ago that what was going to support my work.
Right.
What I just described is what does it. These panels with back framing and side framing, and I don't know of a better way. I've experimented with metal edges, metal framing, heavier wood, trying to buy ready-made frames for things that I make of the size that I do. Impossible. Just, I wouldn't be able to eat
right.
and drink my Diet Dr. Pepper. So I've made that decision, and it has been holding up. But it's work. The amount of it is such work. And there's a point I've become a little less passionate about inhaling sawdust. Goes that way.
Right.
That happens.
But I think if it's your, I hate to say it for lack of a better word, your style of
I think you're right.
of your printing and everything, sort of, because you're making the background, you're making the prints, and you're making the frame.
I think so.
The whole piece is within itself is a work of art. Not only the print, but the whole package.
Yep. There are times you get caught up in it, and I spent 3 days, day after day after day, making panels. Few weeks, some weeks back, because the weather was so extraordinary.
Right.
3 days in a row, and I knocked myself out, needless to say. But now I
now
can
you have
pluck
stuff for
and
the winter.
We do. I think people need to do that. I didn't like that routine, and I call that. I have to ask myself for a little bit of room and forgiveness for myself. I find that a little less creative.
Okay.
I find it more straight ahead, laborious, not even crafty.
Well, making the backgrounds?
Yep.
Or, okay.
Making the panels.
Okay.
Making those panels. It's just a different thing.
Right.
There's no color. There's no viscosity and touching and getting black ink on your fingers. There's something missing,
Right.
So as soon as I can get that part of the project done and stack them up, make them available, good. Now I can go in and make a mess.
Right.
Make a different kind of a colorful mess.
Complete the work almost. Because the panels are not completed yet because you have the print to go on top of it or whatever you're going to make out of it eventually.
Yeah.
Not today, not tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next year.
I shop, stack up some stuff, put it in the back anyway, even some that are not done, wrap them in some tarpaulins. And if you get a good weather day, even in the fall or low winter, come out and do it. If you needed to do a couple. I've set myself up so that I should not have the need to do that for this coming season.
Right.
I think I'm okay till spring. I think so. I'm hoping so. That was my plan.
Right.
So that I could just paint and print and adhere. The other part is I have to adhere this stuff with a plastic.
Okay.
Called Mod Podge.
Okay, yeah.
And it's better when you have good temperatures to dry it in.
Right.
It does dry, but you're better off if I can bring stuff out to the out of doors and have it dry.
Especially in the sun.
Better.
You're dried up.
Yeah, the sun has been the sun does its magic. Yep. That's it.
And what is that space over there? Is just cutting up the wood?
Cutting up wood, yeah. This was for storing, cutting, sanding, grinding, Drilling, all of that was for that. Yep. I have a variety of saws and stacks and stacks of wood. Again, so much of it had become benches.
Yeah.
And again, now it's only for stacking, storage, including my old work. I mean, I had a show at Rafters, and I did put up 20-something pieces, and I think 18 of the 20-something were new. Where am I going to put them?
Yeah.
So I had to store them out here. Worked well, and I started to look at these things as cribs.
Okay.
To possibly, I'm working on these things as cribs on rollers to maybe store my work a little better, out of doors with a couple of tarps.
Right.
We outfox ourselves sometimes with the mess that we make. We do. And in here, I have stored up large pieces. There was a time I was making pieces that were 54-inch squares.
Wow.
And hauling them off to the city and putting them in a spot to be exhibited, just too heavy, too much. So I'm better off now doing some small tucking in. It seems to be working.
Easy to transport, I'm sure, and easier to display.
I would like larger spaces that would say, hey, we want you to do walls and this. I may be waiting with my finger behind my ear for a few years. It may take long.
Yeah.
I have some work in a gallery, some larger piece, few larger pieces in Cortland, New York, at a gallery which is both a comedic gallery and an entertaining gallery and an art gallery.
Okay.
Run by a fellow who is a comedian and a comic writer named Paul Kozlowski. So I have some work up that way, but I'm not going to be running back and forth to change and do that. I'm much better off remaining more local, regional. I am. And it's a happy experience to work through our towns and communities up here. It's great. Again, it is lovely.
That's great. It's great to see artwork, especially with me personally, seeing people that I know have their artwork up. Like we just interviewed Zach Max yesterday. I don't know if you're aware of who Zach Max is. He's a sculptor. He does those big, crazy...
Yeah, Zach Max, Shabrick.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, so we spoke to him, and it was great just, driving around. Oh, there goes a Zach piece or something like that. Or I go to somewhere in Calhoun or something, and I say, oh, there goes Williams' work. It's great to see that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I like seeing Zach's work around. I do like the work. And that we've seen it around for a nice long time now. And some of it is really staggering. Some of it is just the basketball playing pieces are dynamite. I really like the inventiveness of what he and his dad were doing very much. And they're fixtures up here. I mean, they're...
Yeah. I've known Zach. I didn't know of his father. I met his father yesterday. Interesting guy.
Yes. They've been up for a long time.
And I didn't realize he was an artist and created his own abstract work and still continuing to create work. Every day, his son says he creates every day. Does something every day.
It's dynamite. It's great to hear that. It is. I like his work. I like that he promotes. I like Zach. Zach promotes a bunch on Facebook. It's good to see the work. I find out what's new and what location for him. He's also connected to music. He puts his work in places where music is being played. That there's a hip movement and shake and swing with his work. I like that very much.
Yeah, we went to New Memories yesterday in Parksville, and one of his statues is on the front of the stage, and they were using it to hold up a set list or whatever.
I was there also.
Okay.
I stopped at Catskill Art Society first before they opened the doors for the show. It's a nice show.
Yeah.
They have a good show with I saw three good settings for really good-looking art. Set up really nicely done at Cass. I was there just for 20 minutes or so, had a good look, and then I ran down to Parksville to listen in about the grants writing thing.
Right. Oh, you were there yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, we were there yesterday.
Yep.
So
I was there from 12 to 1.
Ah, I missed you.
Yes. Look at this. Leaves just moving a little teeny bit, air moving nice. And the sky holding its blue.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Beautiful fall day today.
Yeah, it is. You recognize this guy?
Yeah, those prints.
Yep. Yep. Instead of just like your mother,
Yeah.
she's never satisfied.
Yeah.
So I decided to take a positive spin on Prince. I wanted people not to feel, yeah. My pal Prince.
And if I ruled the world, every day would be the first day of spring.
Yep. That's me as a ruler. This is also my political influence. Let me be king. Vote me for king. Vote for me, 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 me. I'll make every day first day of spring. See, again, thinking about the weather. I've kept after the company. Again, I looked into the newsletter that there are tremendous numbers of people who are involved in print in the United States as hobbies, as even in ways of making a living. They make small invitation things and so on and so forth. And I found out more about the company and more people who are I see that there are people who own this kind of press. We have a few around. There is a group in Honesdale that has one and they work on it. And lo and behold, I even have a friend in Scranton who called me up when an Army and Navy shop, and I knew the people who owned it. When they went out of business, I have a second press hidden away in that room. They had a show card press. And those people's kids were my students in the 70s as I was a teacher and school principal in Scranton, and I'm still in touch with them, and every so often I've been able to send a note and say, see this is the same as what your dad's press was. It did. There's a charm in it. It's difficult. There's a point at which even physically you got to take a break. You got to pull yourself back. This is incredibly labor intense. Some of that was great fun and wonderful athleticism, we thought, for a period of time. There's a period of time it actually starts to round your shoulder a little bit. Among the things that are fun, again, the age of it, the history of it, there's something about that. And when I say maneuvering, feel what this is. This is so you can feel what it's like when you're moving this kind of type, for example. It's heavy. When you're laying this out for about 2 hours, you can feel the heft of it in your arms. You really can. It's kind of fun. But you do have to break away from it. And one of the best breakaways, of course, is to use these. Another nice thing about something like this is, and since I do so much work having to do with things that are musical, now, one of the things that most of my time is spent laying out and then cleaning up and putting letters back and then taking out new letters. Everything is, even if you're going to make 2 or 3 editions of something. But what's fun is this. There's music on the press all the time. As you are fiddling with this stuff, the sounds are dynamite. They actually go, if you have the radio on or if you're playing a CD, lo and behold, you're playing with Miles or Coltrane. Or or Stevie Winwood. Whatever is going on, there is something that, in fact, there's a lot of feeling in it.
And it's basically because you talk about technology now and making the corrections on a poster. Now it can be done in an instant. Change over. Right. I mean, you can have music on, you're doing it there, but there is something, you are enjoying the physical touching of the letters.
Absolutely, including the dirt. There's a point there's a point at which you say, I have to clean up again. I have to clean up again and again and again. And the answer is, It's very simple. The answer is yeah. That's what you do. So what we do is we lay out the ink. We roll it on. Try to clean it up using the roller. Then what we do is we take our substrate, that which we're going to print on, the backgrounds that I spend hours and hours. These are my piles of some of my favorite new, fresh backgrounds that I have worked on for some months, probably a year and less. including smalls for things, for other little assemblies. And then once that's inked, and you have done and you pick out something that you think is going to support whatever that message is, that grand piece of philosophy or music, you make sure that you're laying it in right. The fun and knowing its measurements is kind of fun too. It's a great lesson in measurement. You got to fit on the bed of the press. You have to fit in the bed of the press. Got to be 15 inches or under. And then what you do is you may take a blanket so as to cushion your roller. You adjust your pressure, you draw it across, and that's light and easy. And this part of it is under pressure. So if you're doing that several times also, your shoulders are talking to you.
Yeah. How many times you have to go over the print to get it? One. Okay.
One time. It can only be one time.
Okay.
If you try it again, what's going to happen is you want
moves a little
tremendous
bit.
blurring.
Right.
Yeah, very, very much like, yeah. It's a great labor, as I said. I'm very happy that my letters were clean enough that I didn't put ink on this. I didn't, because I'll want to use a background like this. And
just real quick, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. So Alexander used to use this, the stores used to use this to make posters for their storefronts? Is that what they use? Okay.
Yes. They make, most of the time they were making some small things like on sale.
On sale, 20% off, things like, yeah.
Boy Scouts uniforms, camera department. Those are and in addition, and that's what that store did. For example, this was one of the departments at Alexander's.
What does that say?
Personnel.
Personnel, okay.
That's where you went to aid a complaint and so on. I have a drawer filled with
all the departments,
all the slugs, yes.
Wow. And
that you can't. I made a piece, one of my first tributes. I have a wonderful piece in the basement, and it was really. I have to say, it was a treat to do it, and I look at it, and it's really a handsome piece, and should be done again. Almost everything that I could possibly fit into something that's probably about 30 inches wide, about 48 inches tall, with a good painted background. I did exhibit this. I exhibit my work locally, and at Robbins, and at his old location. That was one of the first pieces that I brought into his store in 2009.
How do you print so big when the bed is so small here?
Multiples.
Okay.
One under the other.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Let me see. Yes. So this is a good example. Might be. Yeah. There we go. So I might do that, and whether I had additional language on the top or not, or just a painted complementary top, that becomes then. So here we have 30 inches now. So this is a piece that is probably 24 by 30.
Gotcha.
That's what we're doing. And I decided here to, in this case, just recently, this past week or so, to take Joyce Kilmer's very simple poem, and I decided to fatten it up a little bit. That's that, right? I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. He didn't. And I done another version where as lovely as a tree. Here we go. So these are backgrounds in advance that I would have made out of doors with leaf patterns. And I do know that somewhere in the scheme of things, I should, if I have any gusto, get it together, kid, and make something that works.
So sometimes you make backgrounds just to make backgrounds.
I do.
Yeah. So you've been doing work for so long. And you're at this point now, at this age right now, doing this work. If you say you had the miracle of a time machine that actually existed, and that you go back in time to meet your younger self, anything you would give that person advice? What advice would you give that person? What would you tell the younger William Landau?
I like the question because I think there's something. It's a good share. There are a few things that I would say. One, I think that there are very many wonderful creative portions of business and industry that people can attach to. So they don't have to think of themselves as one kind of an artist, splashing and smearing in one direction or shooting in another or performing on a stage necessarily. It pays to explore. If we're thinking about the notion of creative process, and I think that's one of the funny things to talk about, creativity, work with your hands. I would counsel people to consider working with your hands. Don't push it aside and say, I can't do it. Or say the old thing that was said, I can't draw a straight line. Don't, baloney. And maybe the line shouldn't be straight. The answer is go find out. Find out about people who are in companies and businesses. See how you can attach to it and see how you can do that with your particular style and flair. Finding out more about some materials and products that they use and see if there's some sort of a relationship that you can start up even in your tender years. At the same time, yes, develop skills in some of the more traditional art pathways. Become someone who knows how to use a camera and has a feeling for what this camera can provide in the image that it does permanentize, if you wish, or digitize, if you wish, that way. Find out what is in a can of paint. What are the chemistries of paint? Find out about inks. Find out about paper, canvas, lucite, and things on the wall. Find out about package and packaging. That's what I would suggest. Find out, even think about engineering. Think about measurements. Think about automobiles, if you wish. Think about shoes. Think about garments. There are so many good ways to think about how to be involved in a creative process. And I'm going to add something, and how, in fact, to effectuate business with that creativity too. You can either be inventive and start your own, or learn from those that are doing it. Be informed, be educated by it, be funded by them, be supported by that.
Once again, I wasn't voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yes, I'm disappointed. However, I'm pleased that I was not on Epstein's list. This is a call from somebody, or?
I did this for a little show at the BCA. How could I not pay attention to Jeffrey Epstein's list?
Right.
Or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Am I not one of the Everly Brothers? So this is, but this is an example of binding a couple of things together very quickly within 15 to 18 or 20 something inches, looking at it. And this is on that good paper.
Yeah,
back to that. This is on the watercolor paper. And it's paper. So, yeah, to see a deckled edge. But the thing is, look how it held it really held the ink very beautifully, I'm happy to say. That's different, for example, than this, which was done on craft paper. I use spray paint.
I've always wanted to know, because I see sometimes you have lettering like this is strong. There's some little, transparency here. But here you have a lot of transparency.
Yes.
Is this on purpose, or is this?
I like the deconstruction too.
Okay.
I always did. I always liked that drag, that fugitive element. It's hiding somewhere.
Right.
Didn't fill in.
And you're doing that with not putting so much ink onto the printer?
It's learning.
Okay.
On a given day, maybe I had too much paint on it. Maybe there was too much lacquer in that paint. That was it. Maybe you needed to adjust your pressure. Maybe you want to do another run of it.
Right.
After I looked at it, I kind of liked it. There are several things that I can do. One, leave it alone. Leave it alone and really find out why. Ask yourself a little bit why you like it. And I do like it. And the other is, use a marker. If it bothers you and you need to darken it, choose the part that you need to go into to darken it. It's fine. Can you imagine, do you have how many hours are involved in cleaning up this stuff? And then cleaning up the places that you went to do the cleanup.
How do you know they're clean? Because they're all black.
Just
Just looking at it?
Black is a very, very good color. I use red. I use some blues on occasion, and I even use some brown blacks. But by and large, it's, why black? Because it really does have that impact. That is why. And shopping for them sometime, that's another interesting thing, learning materials, companies' products and promotions. And again, I had the pleasure of knowing some of these folks starting out at Pearl. And then the other is I have learned to ask questions. I have learned to ask all of the questions. When I start to do all of the questions that I should of a product as it applies to work that I may do. That's sort of what I have discovered. I've learned enough to try to do that. Let's see. Can I? Do I? Will I? Where are you, kid? Oh. How about yeah, here we go. Let's do this. Let's be real. And this is the message. Come on, kid. Okay, let's move. Let's just try this, shall we? There we go. Let's try this. Here we go. I like the message.
Yeah. Do it. You'll feel better.
Yeah, that's it. That's much of what we're talking about. Yeah. Certainly very imperfect, but the truth is that we have room for correction on this. The idea is back to that optimism, positivity, something. Yeah. That's really, that's a good landing spot. Do it. You'll feel better. Yeah. Okay, kids. We did it. We got a message. See?
Yeah.
We did a print job for today.
Yeah.
I like it. We may expand upon that. We may make a larger version of that in some spot. Again, be present, be here. Yeah. Back to why do it? What are you doing? because it's all right. Because we have messages to sell here. Pause messages to sell. That's the deal. Yeah. Make good, smart, tasteful plans. There are places to do that. I really do think we've gotten very sped up, and we've become ignorant. We pushed aside some things. We have to slow down some and re-engage. And it takes a lot. It takes hours of the day. There is no question.
Right. I mean, I'm grateful. Like as I was saying, my mother gave me this sort of the passion of going to museums as a kid because I was into drawing, and she was okay. Well, there's drawings at the museum. So thankfully, I lived in the city, lived in the Bronx, and we will go down to the Met or go to the museums there, but mostly to the Met, and just see all this different artwork.
That's very good fortune.
Yeah. And I had the idea of, we learned somewhere, my friend and I, Ralph, who's also an artist with me, I don't forget where we learned it, that other artists would sit at or maybe we saw it there one day at a museum, other artists sketching the other people's work. And I said, oh, you could do that? And I still have my sketchbooks as a kid of pieces that were in the Met that we drew to sort of learn how to draw and learn from the masters. And I remember that experience. And I still, to this day, if I visit a new city, one of the first things I do is go visit a museum, just to feel part of the city in some capacity. Even though maybe it won't be, representative of the city sometimes in the museum, but at least you part of the sort of the culture of it.
There are more things. We need to think more creatively about how to get people to creativity also. Among those things, how many kids have been to places where textiles are processed? Knitting, yarn work, fiber arts, on a massive scale or an individual scale. Take a look and see. How many young folks are really exposed to this? It pays to do that and look at these things and have conversations with. And I'm going to come back to something which is oddball, but it starts with the good morning. You got to create the welcomingness of it all the way through. We can be dismissed I can't do it. My mommy says no. My dad says, I don't want to. It's not what I want. No, I want to only. Okay, you have to figure out how to deal with this too. Can I show you something that I really like? Come on over here and let's do this with your teacher and your other group of friends. Let's do that.
But for the business part of it, do you actively think about it? Because there's other artists, like I was talking to the author of this book, she's an artist because she writes and she writes novels, but she also understands that she calls herself the CEO of her own company because she has to market herself to get out her work, because this is what she does full time. Do you feel that need?
I do. I find myself having the need to, if I like what I'm doing, I need to, and I want to, and I believe that there's a good thing in sharing it. There's something good about, which we could say about, again, all forms of art. Get it out there, whether it's on the radio or any other. I'd like it out there. So the answer is I need to do some promoting. Ooh, I have something new to show you. Ooh, I'd like you to see this. Ooh, is it time to change out 3 that you have? And can I give you 4 others that are newer and fresher? I don't do a whole lot of banging at it heavily. And part of it, again, which has to do with where I am in my own maturity. But I think it's good to be conscious of that if you mean it.
Well, I think as you get older, I don't know, cynical is maybe not the right word, but let's say when I was a young kid and I wanted to try oil painting, because I was inspired by Bob Ross or something like that, and I tried it. Never had a thought, looking back, I never had a thought, what are people going to think about this? Or this is not my career, chose this, why am I wasting my time now? Nowadays, that's what creeps up into my mind. As days I have, I say, I don't want to do photography right now. I want to do something oil-based or water-based or something different. I would say, I'll admit to you, I'm afraid to do it sometimes just because I won't be good at it. But then again, it's like I wasn't good at photography or I wasn't good at X, Y, and Z before I started. So that prevents me for doing it. And I feel almost like stifled in a way. So it's almost like a little circle of like, yeah, I want to try, but no, I'm not good enough. So I'll go try it, no, I'm not good enough. And then you keep circling until you're not creating anything. But you know, I don't think you have that issue. It just seems like, or as a kid, you don't have issues like that. It's almost like the Picasso line is, you know, like you spend your lifetime to learn how you used to draw as a kid.
People, spaces, and materials, exposure to those are really a very good way for someone to start to neutralize fears and or even open up that pathway to some discovery in themselves about something that they might like. We're not, again, I don't think we're doing enough of that and or waiting for a later time. Start early, handle some things. What do you think? I didn't like handling it. Okay, good. Then we don't have to. And, but finding people who are, again, I come back to museum classes, art classes, those are good proposals from people for some small amount of funding to go and become more community involved, more of that, those kinds of things. And I think it's funny, there was a time I was going to mouth religious institutions should do this because they have the time and space. Maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't matter. It could be a religious institution. It could be a picnic bench down by the creekside. It just doesn't matter. But something that has the basis for the offering. It pays to fit it in. But I want to play over there. I promise I'll get you there in 20 minutes. You can play with her in 20. Give me 10 of the 20 that I need, okay? I'd like you to look at this and squeeze. Tell me what you feel about squeezing this tooby wooby. How about sticking a brush in the water over there and making a mess? How about plucking that string on that thing that looks like a cigar box with nails?
Right. It's just weird because my daughter, when she draws, and sometimes we watch YouTube videos of drawing, and then she got upset the other day because it wasn't a straight line like they did it on TV. And so my automatic reaction was there are no mistakes in art. Whatever you do is what you do. There's no mistakes in art. That's why I keep telling her, be honest with sometimes, but I don't fully believe it myself sometimes. When I do my own work, when I want to experiment out there in drawing and stuff like that, I would draw like a secret, like someone's watching me, almost. And it prevents me from drawing. This is my own neurosis that I go through. But for her, and you know, I wonder where that comes from. Automatically, she said to me, like, you know, this is a straight line. She got frustrated that she couldn't do it like the person on TV does it. And I said, you do it whatever, you know, how you want to do it. There's no mistakes in art. Or even yesterday, not yesterday, but 2 days ago, we were putting together a craft, and she wants to mimic what the picture does. So we're making a picture frame, and she got upset that it wasn't exactly how that is. But quickly, she turned around, well, we're doing our own version. And she said that on her own. So I felt proud of her that she was able to not get frustrated anymore because it wasn't like the picture. We're doing our own version of it.
You're both engaging each other in that. And that's what we're asking about, right? For sure.
Yeah. It's okay to make mistakes. Because I think that there's discovery in those mistakes.
Yeah, I think we need a larger forum for that.
Yeah.
I would like that to be immediately, of course, it's very easy for me to say, wouldn't I like that to be the classroom?
Right.
Easy for me to shift, but I think that is the place. It doesn't. It could be the next door classroom. It doesn't have to be. Let it be in the. It could be the gym or the auditorium. Is okay with me.
How old were you when you made this work?
Let me see. I must have been 20. 25.
Okay.
So yes, and I think I copied that straight from a magazine. Or I saw an image like this in a magazine and said I should paint it. Yeah, I had to be 24, 25 years of age. Yes. Yep. Scranton, Pennsylvania.
As I get older, I'm 45 now, and I think about, you know, how long life is. It's short at the same time. You know, I think about now, like I was born when I was 10 years old. My father was 50. So he had me late in life, and now I think about when I was 10 years old, how much life I had afterwards, high school, all college, all that, and I was long and stuff like that. So now I'm thinking that now at 45, I panic sometimes, like I'm running out of time for some reason. But at the same time, you get that way because, people that you get to the age that people start passing away. And
you do.
And I know people recently who are around my age who passed away. And it messes with your mind. And you just have to figure out, you're running out of time, you have kids, and you feel that even time is even going faster, at least for me at least.
It does seem to go faster, right? Yeah. It evaporates more quickly.
But when I see you create and you're at the age you are now and you're still creating, and you think about when you were 50, all the way to now, how much work you have able to create, how much life you lived.
And what I do say, I have a lot to do. I have a lot to do, a lot more to do, and I'm happy to have that. I really am. And it's up to me to make sure that I stay healthy and fit to do it.
Well, I think doing this is keeping you...
I think it's there's something about that really makes sense to me. It's very easy to get that good, positive vibe around us. Once again, when we look at the better models of things in our world, look at it, whether it's the work that they produce or the attitudes that they carry or the way they carry them, any pieces and parts of it. Part of it is, got to have some balance. We need to exercise. I do my walk 5 to 7. I do a small walk 5 to 7 times a week along the river. That's what I do. If I can't get to the river, I walk around the corner here to the creek. And that becomes important. Got to get it in. I decided to make tools for stamping and stamp colors into this a couple of months ago.
Right.
I made some tools and I decided to have a plate with paint, do my stamping in this shape. And lo and behold, I like it. I like it, and it seems to me, if I look at this will support some printed message terrifically, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3. Those are the kinds of things that I like to do. Makes work with what you know, make some new discoveries, make some new changes. Find another shape to create a little bit of something a little different geometrically there. Also, again, stamping. So I stamped circles and decided to extend it with legs. What I like this as a colorful background for, I don't know what yet. But
you have the background.
When I'll go to the pile, son of a gun, I'll remember. It's
right.
Well, I may have one I think that will work with that message. Let's go looking for it. And then sometimes I do have to stop and make more of something. If I have one of these, and I may have used 1 or 2, I may have to go and do some. Good. So go do some more. Go paint. Go paint inside. The weather's not good. Go paint inside is okay.
Yes, I saw that.
This is and this again on real good paper.
Yeah.
Here it is. Arches 140. So there's a 2-panel. That would be a wonderful 2-panel background for something. If I decided if we really had something that said, "Hey, here's an occasion, here's an expression. Maybe we have to be here. We have to coexist." This would be a nice support for that.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's crisp, and if that was important, then it would be okay to devote that to it.
Right.
Some things are a little sloppier. These things are much tighter.
Yeah.
On the paper, it's much tighter.
Especially the paper you're using, the vibrance of the colors.
Yeah. This is, just feels so good to manage this kind of paper.
And that automatic right there, it just seems like that's something you can't really recreate on a computer screen.
The other issue, there's something else in this too. If I'm going to post some of my work out of doors, this is not the best.
Right.
It may look dandy, but the truth is it's going to age and get beat up pretty quickly. And that's some of the choice making I need to do. Well, what do you have in mind with this? Where is this going to go? Does it have to go somewhere other than, in your storage shed or on your storage rack? What are you going to do there? part of that is that conversation. Sometimes I dismiss it. There's a point you can't just stand still for too long in that process. So the answer is, very often, make sure you have enough material.
Yeah.
For me, that's part of it. Make certain that you're doing some things, and do some things that are more painterly. Do some things that are more painterly, that are more artful, rather than just a quick done-up background. We have to do more fostering of it. I do think so. I think we'll make a more satisfying population. I think a more informed population, a more responsible population, and a more self-satisfying population. We add health into that package too. There is such a thing as spiritual and mental health in that too. I think so. Yeah. It includes nutrition and making nutrition artful, climate, and certainly making the understanding of climate and change more artful. Everyone needs that in communities, and then we need them to try to aspire but not neglect their small hometowny things. We need to fund that better, more. That has more long-range investment than immediate profitability. That's one of those things that's a little bit different. And we have to try to argue with that some. I hope. We got the room for it. This is time for change. It is. Takes some doing. It takes some doing, it does. Not to get around, to avoid the fear of making mistakes, but find the humor and the ease in it too. My mistakes are called MSOTs, M-S-O-Ts. And that's because one of the early pieces I put on Robin's wall in its old location was something that I did was Mondrian-esque, red, blue, and yellows and whites, abstract, and I spelled most, M-S-O-T. So my mistakes are now known as MSOTs. And I look, and I'm charmed by them. There's a good MSOT, it's okay. Conversion, we have to be converting time yet. I know you're tired now, you only want to watch TV. We have to regulate electronic devices to some extent too.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest. I think that's very, very, very difficult. I really wish I had a good, strong arm around it.